Start off by making a small head out of thread at the front of the hook, just behind the eye. And you don't have to do it too much, just a few wraps back and forth should be enough. And then leave your thread in the position where you are going to tie in the hackle in the next step. Now you're going to tie in the hackle, and I just happen to be using a jungle cock spade feather because I like this feather. But you could use a lot of different things. You could use India hen, you could use saddle hackle, grouse, partridge. There's a number of different feathers that you could use, but the procedure is pretty much the same. So what I like to do is pinch it off where I'm going to tie it in and just kind of pull some of these fibers back so I have an idea of how much hackle I'm actually going to be tying on there. And tie it right at that point where I pinched it. You'll notice that I'm tying the feather so that it slants down. And the reason for that is because we want the hackle to come forward a little bit. So using the natural curvature of the feather like that, it's just going to make all those fibers slant forward when I wrap it. Now move the thread back just a little bit to where you're going to tie off the hackle, just a few wraps, and take your hackle pliers, put the stem of the hackle in there, and then I'm going to start wrapping back toward the thread. And what I do is I kind of sweep the fibers forward a little bit like this as I'm wrapping, just to make sure that they all kind of go forward. And then when you get to the end, just tie off the stem and break it. Now that I've got my hackle wrapped, I'm going to take my silver wire and tie that in right behind the hackle, and then wrap it down back toward the bend of the hook to where I'm eventually going to stop the thread where I want to end the body. And you can wrap it down as far or as much as you want. There's really no kind of set way to do it, but just make a nice layer of thread right back over that wire. Now it's time to form the body. And the body is basically just thread that you're going to build up to make a nice taper. So I like to leave it kind of thin at the back and then just kind of work it this way to make a nice taper so it's a little bit thicker in the front. Now you could use 6/0 thread for this, and a lot of people do, and it is a little bit faster. However, I think using 8/0 thread actually makes a smoother body, so I usually like to use thinner thread, even though it takes a little bit longer, but not too bad. I just like the smooth body it makes. And so when you get a taper you like, with a nice thicker thorax, you just stop the thread right behind the hackle. Now we're going to wind the wire over the thread body we just created to make a nice segmented look. And I like to wind it at least 5 or 6 times, sometimes more depending on the size of the hook, just to give it a nice segmented look. And once you get to just behind the hackle, you can tie it off. And then instead of cutting the wire with my scissors, what I like to do is just kind of twist it like this until it breaks off. And the reason for that is that you don't get a tag end that you'll have to cover up later with the thread. And the final step is to whip finish right behind the hackle. I like to use a little bit bigger whip finisher just because I feel like it reaches over the hackle a little bit better. And just tie it off right behind the hackle, and you're done. This is just one way to make a Tenkara fly. Of course, you could substitute different colors of thread or wire, different types of hackle to make different looking flies, but this is just one way to do it, and that's the basic technique.